Welcome back to Bucklesberry Lemonade. I'm your host, Lisa, and I'm here with my handsome husband, Tim. How you doing, baby?
I'm doing just fine, my love. You know what? I've got an idea for tonight's episode.
Really? What do you have in mind, love?
How about we dive into some truly eerie, spine-tingling, scary stories?
Ooh, that sounds perfect. Stay tuned, everyone. This episode is going to be one you won't want to miss.
On a typical Friday night at a Waffle House somewhere in North Carolina, 18-year-old Alex was wrapping up a busy shift. The diner was filled with late-night customers, friends sharing meals, drunks, stoners, a few old regulars engaged in animated conversation. As Alex cleared his last table around 1:30 a.m., he heard his cell phone buzz in the storage room. A text from his roommate explained she just wasn't in shape to pick him up due to a tipsy night out with her boyfriend, but that a mutual friend of theirs named Jake would pick him up after his shift at Walmart. Alex decided, hey, the fresh air could do me good. I could pick up a few things at Walmart, so he texted Jake and just said, hey, I'll walk the mile difference and meet you at Walmart. See you in a few. After clocking out and changing into some fresh clothes to escape the lingering smell of grease. I mean, who wouldn't do that, right? Alex took the back road, sort of a shortcut, behind a row of restaurants and small shops, to avoid the main highway. After all, it was 2 a.m. Streets were quiet, but trouble was just ahead. As Alex neared a roundabout, a distinct sound of high heels clicking on the sidewalk caught his attention. Curious, as any man would be, Alex retraced his steps and turned the corner between two of the eateries, and there he saw her. A tall, red, curly-haired young woman in a blue short dress, a denim jacket, and black high heels. Her expression was cold and blank as she swayed unsteadily, almost as if she was intoxicated.
Are you just going to stand there and go?
She called out.
Or are you buying something?
Startled, Alex hesitated and began to walk away.
What? Ain't I not good enough
Alex
for you?
paused, took a long, deep breath, and asked if she needed help.
Yeah, let them know that this is not who I want to be. Let anyone who will listen know.
She replied, blowing a clumsy kiss before just vanishing into thin air. Alex stood there, a heavy sadness settling in. He never learned her name. It was just a brief encounter, startling still the same. That night left a lasting and haunting impression, a reminder that even in ordinary moments, the extraordinary can slip quietly into our lives.
In 2013, around 6:30 a.m. on a dark morning, a commuter on her way to work encountered an unexplainable scene. As she rounded a corner, she noticed a car had stopped in the middle of the road. Assuming the vehicle had broken down, she drove around it to the left. As she passed, she caught sight of an elderly man in the driver's seat, a balding figure of a man dressed in a white sweater and hunched over. Well, after traveling about a half a mile, a sense of unease compelled the commuter to circle back around. When she returned to the spot, the elderly man had vanished. In his place stood a middle-aged man in his late 30s with dark hair, who was busy on his cell phone. The two men looked nothing alike. Concerned, the commuter rolled down her window and offered assistance.
Thank you so much. I ran out of gas. I seemed to be lost. I was just on the way to visit a friend, that's all.
He confirmed no one else was in the car. The incident left the commuter perplexed. Was it a case of mistaken identity? Or something far more mysterious? To this day, the true nature of what was seen in the driver's seat remains a mystery. Was it a ghost or just a figment of her imagination?
3 years ago, a strange experience unfolded for a woman in North Carolina after purchasing a ring from a new age store. Now, what seemed like an ordinary purchase would soon bring unsettling events into her life. One night, as her mother slept peacefully in her bed, she was awakened by an eerie sensation. At the foot of her bed stood a girl, dressed in a long white dress. It extended all the way to her ankles. Her long black hair hung in front of her face, hiding it. It was a scene straight out of a ghost story. As her mother stared at the girl, the figure floated quickly toward her with an unnatural speed. And when their eyes met, her mother was horrified to see the girl's eyes were empty, like two black holes. And her mouth was just a gaping void which suddenly opened wide, as though the girl was screaming at her. Panic consumed her mother, who scrambled to turn on the light, only for the figure of the ghostly girl to vanish into thin air. This haunting encounter repeated itself for a month, each time more terrifying than the last. Now, despite their fascination with the paranormal, they didn't think much of it at the time. More strange occurrences followed. Her mother's rearview mirror in the car would mysteriously point at her face. Several times she narrowly avoided accidents. And in desperation, her mother decided to just simply throw the ring away. Now, for a short time, things did grow quiet. However, after about a week, the ghost girl returned. One day, while searching through her jewelry box, the mother discovered the ring she had discarded, setting neatly on top of her other jewelry. At this point, she felt the need to try and put an end to this ghostly presence. So her mother and her sister placed the ring in a bag of salt and threw it away again. Since then, they've had no encounters with the ghostly girl. Yet, they can't help but wonder what might happen when the ring is once again freed from its confinement. Will the ghost girl return? Or will another person fall victim to the haunting? Perhaps that's another story for another time.
In January of 2010, a woman in North Carolina recounted a chilling experience that occurred the day after the birth of her youngest son. The hospital where she gave birth had a reputation for being haunted, with numerous reports of strange occurrences. Alone in her room after her husband had returned home to work, she found herself watching television. She felt an inexplicable unease, particularly toward the bathroom door, which seemed to emanate an unsettling presence. As time passed, she began to feel dizzy, cold, and immobilized. Just as she considered calling for assistance, the door opened, expecting a nurse entering to check her vitals. She was startled to see a nurse standing silent in the doorway, smiling. The nurse's attire was peculiar: a white dress, white shoes, and a white hat, reminiscent of nursing uniforms from the 1940s. Notably, this nurse appeared to be African American, differing from the nurse who had attended to her earlier. The nurse's unwavering smile and unbroken eye contact intensified the woman's discomfort as she lay there. The hospital hallway behind the nurse transformed into a scene of trees and tombstones resembling a graveyard. She then heard distant singing, which grew louder as 6 men dressed in old-fashioned suits appeared, carrying a casket. They entered the room, passing by the nurse, and proceeded into the closed bathroom door. Once the last man entered, the room door closed and the unsettling coldness subsided. Overwhelmed with fear, she prayed until a familiar nurse arrived to check her vitals and administer medication. The nurse informed her of the upcoming shift change and that the night nurse would arrive shortly. Approximately 10 minutes later, a knock on the door announced the arrival of the night nurse. Still drowsy from the medication, the woman kept her eyes closed during their initial conversation. Upon opening her eyes, she was shocked to see a nurse who bore a striking resemblance to the apparition she had seen earlier, though now dressed in modern scrubs. The nurse inquired about her well-being, and despite her shock, the woman managed to respond affirmatively. Throughout the night, the nurse periodically checked on her, each time wearing a knowing smile that suggested an awareness of the woman's earlier experience. By morning, the nurse had departed, and a different nurse took over her care until her discharge. Years later, the vividness of this encounter remains etched in the woman's memory, serving as a chilling reminder of the unexplained events she experienced during her hospital stay.
About 3 years ago, a man and his father had just finished their work around noon when they received a frantic call from his brother's wife.
Hello?
She was alone at home after dropping off her twin daughters at school, and something had terrified her. She explained she had gone back to bed
Somebody
but was
in the
suddenly
house?
awakened by what she described as an eerie
Okay, we'll
presence.
be right there.
Though she couldn't see it clearly, she described it as a dark figure, more of a shadow than a solid form. Her voice trembled as she recounted what she had seen. However, that wasn't the only disturbing occurrence. When she finally gathered the courage to move around the house, she discovered something chilling. Wet crosses imprinted on 2 doors, one on the bathroom door and another on the bedroom door. She attempted to wipe them away, but they wouldn't fade. The crosses had no discernible scent and stood out starkly against the color of the doors, as if something or someone had deliberately placed them there. Skeptical but intrigued, the man and his father decided to stop by the house. Upon arrival, they saw the crosses just as she had described. No one could explain how they appeared or what they were made out of, but the house seemed to have an unsettling energy. Strange occurrences left them with more questions than answers. Unable to shake her fear, the woman and her family decided to move to a new home, and the unexplainable events ceased. However, the mystery remained, especially when they later heard about the new occupants. The house was now home to a new family with 4 children, and while they never spoke of crosses, something else raised their concern. The youngest daughter had developed an unusual habit. She would often stare off into empty rooms for long periods of time, as if she was watching something unseen. When questioned, she refused to explain what she was looking at, which left her parents uneasy. To this day, the origins of the shadowy figure and the wet crosses remain unknown. The house is still there, and whether or not its strange presence lingers is a mystery yet to be solved.
And there you have it. Those were some scary, scary stories.
Yeah, there were.
Which one was your favorite?
I thought they all were good, but the one that meant the most to me, or the one that made me think the very most, was the first one, the Waffle House Streetwalker.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Sad.
That was sad. That was really sad.
I mean, obviously she's a ghost. That's one of those stories I'd love to know some more of the background behind.
I would too. I'd love that. Yes.
I mean, she's obviously passed. I mean, he's seen something, but how did she pass? What story led her to that point?
It is it's sad. It really is. It makes you.
Yeah, they were all good. Which one got you the most?
The last one.
The last one.
The very last one. Yes, it was
the hospital.
The hospital. That sounded like some kind of voodoo mess.
Yeah, that's creepy.
That was very creepy. I mean, opening your eyes, strange men coming in, and then going in your bathroom. It looks like a cemetery. It sounds like some voodoo.
And then the nurse looked familiar, and the nurse kept staring at her like
I know. I mean, then it was strange. The nurse never came back. It was a different nurse.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, could that have been the anesthesia?
Maybe, but I don't think so.
That doesn't make for a good ghost story if we.
It doesn't. So let's go with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things to where something she had something happen, but it just all the undertones or overtones of voodoo, they're all over that story.
They are, and I didn't say where it was.
Just somewhere in North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
You know,
where in North Carolina would something like that be voodoo-y? What?
I don't know. In my mind I had Charlotte in mind.
It could have been.
But
yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
It was creepy.
The story about the ring that kept appearing, that was creepy in itself too. But for me, the one that touched me the most was the Waffle House streetwalker.
Well, that touched me too. But the voodoo one was I think that was more along the lines of scary. I mean, if you are in the hospital, that makes me not want to go to the hospital because because you think about it, there are people who die in the hospital, and there's got to be.
Well, you figure as much life is brought into a hospital, there's as much death
going out. Yes,
spooky.
It is very spooky. Well, and there you have it, folks.
More scary stories to keep you up all night.
Yes.
And we hope you enjoyed this special edition
of Bucklesberry Lemonade, the podcast.
Until the next time.
See you later.
This is my lovely host, Lisa.
And my handsome co-host, Tim.
Take care, guys.